A heartless tycoon casts his expectant wife into a fierce snowstorm, believing she has deceived him. In a state of despair and isolation, she navigates the night, her vehicle suddenly veering off course, leaving her ensnared in the chilling embrace of darkness. As despair looms, an unexpected savior rescues her from the edge of oblivion, providing refuge. Yet he is far from an ordinary individual. In her struggle for survival, startling revelations about her history and his start to emerge. In the meantime, the husband who left her uncovers the heart-wrenching reality. She remained loyal at all times. As destiny draws near, a single question lingers. Will she go back to the one who banished her, or has she discovered the love that was destined for her? Before we dive into the narrative, please share in the comments your location in the world where you're tuning in from today. If you're relishing these tales, be sure to subscribe, as tomorrow's special episode is one you absolutely won't want to overlook. Julie Barrett stood quaking in the doorway of the mansion, her hands instinctively cradling her swollen belly, as if to protect her unborn child from the verbal onslaught. Outside, snow began to drift down, fragile flakes that masked the brewing tempest, accumulating both in the world beyond and in the depths of the soul. Whom are you addressing? Richard Harrington's voice sliced through the foyer with a chilling clarity. His typically attractive face twisted in fury, blue eyes slitted with intensity. Be honest with me, Julie. Your words reached me. Richard, please, Julie implored, her hazel eyes glistening with tears. It was indeed Dr. Winters. I had inquiries regarding the infant. At 8 o'clock at night, Richard approached with a deliberate grace, his luxurious cologne saturating the air in the tight quarters. Do you believe I'm foolish? Absolutely, I get it. Until tomorrow, then. Your words were precisely that. Julie recoiled as though he had hit her. I have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Please feel free to reach out to the office directly. Enough. Richard's fist collided with the wall, causing a framed wedding photo to shatter on the marble floor. The glass fractured, a delicate network of fissures radiating across their beaming expressions. I've noticed the way men gaze at you. Even in your condition, you find it hard to resist, don't you? That's not fair, Julie murmured, a tear gliding down her cheek. I have always remained loyal. Absolutely not. Richard chuckled, a sound empty of any real amusement. Gather your belongings. I need you to leave by tonight. The phrases lingered in the atmosphere surrounding them. Julie experienced a sensation as though the ground had vanished from under her. That can't be what you truly mean. A snowstorm is on the horizon. I am currently 6 months along, expecting your child. Could it be? Richard's voice fell to a menacing whisper. Is that truly my child, Julie? The allegation took her breath away. Julie stumbled back, gripping the doorframe for stability. How could you, she finally managed to say. How could you possibly question that? Leave now. Every word was delivered with chilling accuracy. Gather what you require and depart. Upstairs, Julie wandered through their bedroom in a haze, her hands shaking as she collected necessities. Warm clothes, prenatal vitamins, and the emergency cash stashed in her jewelry box. She found herself reflecting on the past 2 years, recalling their whirlwind romance that began at a charity gala, Richard's captivating determination, and the extravagant wedding that felt like a dream come true. She recalled the way he presented her with flowers each Friday for months, how he paid close attention when she shared her dreams, and the sense of safety she experienced in his embrace. When did it transform? Following the wedding, his care slowly morphed into a sense of ownership. His inquiries turned into relentless questioning. Julie zipped her suitcase shut and lingered at the dresser, her eyes drawn to yet another wedding photo. They appeared utterly joyful, completely enamored. Richard's arm encircled her waist in a protective embrace, her head gently resting on his shoulder. A sob lodged in her throat. Downstairs, Richard stood by the front door, his stance tense, expression unreadable. Your belongings will be dispatched to your next destination, he stated with an icy demeanor as she drew near. My attorney will reach out soon. Richard, Julie made one final effort, her voice trembling. I kindly ask that you refrain from this action. Not this evening. This isn't the way. For an instant, just an instant, a spark danced in his gaze. Ambiguity, remorse. Yet, it vanished, supplanted by that familiar chill of determination. Farewell, Julie. The door shut behind her, echoing with a sense of irrevocable conclusion. The snow cascaded down in thick flakes as Julie packed her suitcase into the car. Her fingers trembled, both frozen and startled, as she struggled to grasp the keys. The engine sprang to life, its headlights slicing through the swirling white haze. As she distanced herself from the sole source of safety she had clung to for the past 2 years, tears clouded her sight. Julie furiously brushed them aside, her hand momentarily abandoning the steering wheel to rest gently on her belly. It's all right, she murmured to her unborn child. Everything will turn out fine. Yet the paths were swiftly turning perilous. Snow piling up quicker than the plows can manage to clear it away. The windshield wipers battled tirelessly against the descending snow, crafting fleeting arcs of clarity that swiftly vanished. Julie tightened her hold on the steering wheel, her knuckles turning pale with tension. Her thoughts echoed with Richard's harsh words, his icy rejection, the broken wedding photo lying on the ground. How had their once gentle affection transformed into this haunting reality? When did doubt take the place of faith? The vehicle glided precariously over a slick patch of ice, and Julie felt her heart race in her chest as she deftly regained control of the slide. The storm grew fiercer with each passing moment, turning well-known streets into a perilous white maze. "Please," she whispered, uncertain of her audience, "we kindly request your assistance." The windshield wipers struggled valiantly against the encroaching snow, but their efforts were in vain. Julie's car inched ahead at a mere 15 miles per hour, yet it still felt perilously swift on the ever more hazardous road. The wind surged, howling around the vehicle as if it were a sentient being, swaying it gently with every fierce gust. "Just a bit more," Julie murmured, narrowing her eyes to discern the path ahead. Her destination remained uncertain, possibly a motel, or perhaps the home of her old friend Sarah, located 2 towns away. Any place secure and cozy. The vehicle skidded over a concealed stretch of black ice lurking beneath the pristine layer of snow. Julie experienced a nauseating wave of helplessness as the steering wheel slipped from her grasp, rendering it ineffective. The car skidded to the side, then whirled in a chilling half-circle before careening off the edge. She let out a cry, instinctively wrapping her arms around her pregnant belly as the car lurched downward. A sudden, forceful shake, followed by an eerie calm. The engine coughed and came to a halt. For several seconds, Julie remained motionless, her breath hitching in uneven gasps. As she finally lifted her gaze, all that met her eyes was an expanse of white through the windshield. The vehicle had careened nose first into a roadside ditch, precariously tilted at an awkward angle. "It's all right," she whispered to her unborn child, her voice quivering. "We're doing fine." However, they were not all right. As Julie attempted to restart the engine, it emitted a grinding noise before falling silent. The warmth from the heater dissipated swiftly. The chill in the air intensified as darkness enveloped the surroundings. Julie struggled to grasp her phone, her fingers awkward and unsteady from the biting cold and rising dread. There's absolutely no signal, not a single bar in sight. No, no, no. A wave of anxiety surged within her, tightening around her lungs. She found herself isolated, engulfed by a relentless snowstorm, utterly cut off from any means of summoning assistance. The infant stirred within her, as though attuned to her unease. After 15 minutes, the chill in the car's interior had become quite unsettling. Julie pulled her coat snugly around her, her hands gliding over her arms in a soothing motion. Her breath formed a mist before her face. She was acutely aware of the perils of hypothermia, particularly concerning her unborn child. Assistance needed. She let out a cry, rolling down the window and instantly wishing she hadn't as the frigid wind assaulted her face. "Is anyone present? We need your assistance." Only the mournful wind replied. Thomas Reeves navigated his truck with precision along the snow-blanketed road, the windshield wipers struggling to keep pace with the unyielding flurry of snowflakes. After an emergency call to the Henderson farm, he felt utterly drained, having devoted 3 hours to assisting with the delivery of a breech foal. Quite the evening, isn't it? He spoke into the emptiness, adjusting the heater's warmth. The ancient truck's cabin embraced a comforting warmth. As he turned the corner, something captured his attention. A subtle crimson shimmer flickers at the edge of the road, almost obscured by the swirling snowflakes. Rear illumination. Thomas eased his pace, gazing intently through the passenger window. In weather like this, common sense would dictate staying indoors, yet there they were, tail lights flickering, as if the car's battery were on the verge of giving out. He came to a stop, his hand diving into the glove compartment to retrieve the sturdy flashlight. Years of military training had instilled in him a deep reliance on his instincts, and at this moment, they were urgently signaling that someone was in need of assistance. As he exited his truck, the wind almost sent him reeling. Snow lashed against his face as he made his way toward the distant red glow, each step sinking him knee-deep into the drifts. The beam of his flashlight sliced through the shadows, revealing a car precariously lodged in a ditch. Thomas battled through the chaos to reach the driver's side window, illuminating the interior with his light. A woman sat curled up in the seat, her arms encircling a noticeably pregnant belly. Her eyes were shut, her lips a shade of blue. "Hello." Thomas rapped gently on the window. The woman shifted a bit but kept her eyes closed. The chill of hypothermia was beginning to take hold. He made an attempt to open the door. Secured. Thomas struck with greater intensity, a wave of relief flooding him as the woman's eyes began to flutter open. She struggled with the lock, her actions slow and clumsy. As the door swung open at last, Thomas instinctively reached out to steady her, preventing her from tumbling forward. "I've got you," he said, observing the way she instinctively shielded her belly. "I will take you to a place where the sun shines bright and the air is pleasantly warm." "My darling," she murmured, her voice scarcely rising above the breeze. "I'll look after both of you," Thomas vowed, cradling her in his arms. She was more delicate than he had anticipated, even with her pregnancy. "My truck is just up the road. May I ask for your name?" "Julie." She persevered despite her chattering teeth. "Hi Julie, it's Thomas. I am a veterinarian, having previously served as a military medic. You are now in a place of safety." He bore her through the thickening snow, using his form to protect her from the harshest gusts of wind. As they approached his truck, her shivering grew more pronounced. "That's quite a positive indication, indeed." The body ceased its trembling in the final stages of hypothermia. Thomas carefully settled her into the passenger seat, turning the heat up to its highest setting before reaching for the emergency blankets tucked away behind the seat. He enveloped her in them, securing the edges with meticulous care. "My cabin's about 10 minutes from here," he explained, his voice steady and comforting, a skill honed through years of discipline and experience. "We'll ease you into it. Ensure the little one is okay. All will be well." Julie nodded faintly, her gaze locked onto his face as though he were a beacon in a tempest, which Thomas figured he quite literally was. The cabin, though modest in size, radiated warmth, with a fire gently smoldering in the wood stove. Thomas gently lifted Julie and placed her on the couch closest to the warmth. He moved with purposeful precision, stacking logs to elevate the flames, fetching additional blankets, and brewing hot tea. With gentle guidance, he advised her to take small sips as he assisted her in holding the mug. "It's important for your body temperature to rise slowly over time." As warmth gradually seeped back into her body, Julie found herself becoming increasingly aware. "Thank you," she murmured. "If you hadn't shown up." "But I did," Thomas replied matter-of-factly. He knelt beside her, instinctively applying his knowledge and skills. "Could I take a moment to check your pulse?" "What about the baby?" Julie gave a slight nod. His touch was both tender and skilled as he assessed her vital signs, then rested a hand on her belly, sensing for any movement. With a smile, he remarked on the strong heartbeat. "And there, a solid strike. Your child is a warrior." Relief washed over Julie. She lifted her gaze, finally recognizing her savior in a profound way. Soft, compassionate eyes, with traces of worry framing them, a rugged jaw adorned with stubble, and a look that conveys sincere care. Their gazes intertwined and lingered for a heartbeat. A connection flickered between them, a sense of familiarity, maybe, as if they were kindred souls. The warmth in his gaze contrasted sharply with the cold dismissal she had seen in Richard's eyes just hours earlier, causing tears to threaten once more for Julie. "You rescued us," she whispered gently. "Your kindness leaves me at a loss for words." Thomas smiled, a soft arc of his lips that illuminated his eyes. "You have already done that." Julie wrapped her hands around the steaming mug of tea, feeling the warmth envelop her fingers. The fire crackled in the wood stove, casting a warm, golden glow throughout Thomas's cabin. The tempest raged beyond the walls. Yet within these walls, she experienced a sense of security that had eluded her for hours. "Are you feeling improved at all?" Thomas inquired softly, his tone warm as he eased into the armchair opposite her. "Much," Julie remarked, though her voice trembled slightly. "I can only imagine the outcome had you not discovered me." Thomas dismissed her gratitude with a wave of his hand. "It's something that anyone could have easily done." "No," Julie replied gently. "They simply would not have." A hush enveloped them, both soothing and brimming with unvoiced inquiries. Thomas took a moment to clear his throat. "I don't mean to intrude, but is there someone I ought to reach out to? Is there someone concerned for your well-being?" Julie's gaze fell to her mug. A wave of shame enveloped her as the memories of the evening surged forth. "My spouse?" She hesitated, a constriction forming in her throat. "He was the catalyst that drew me out into the tempest." Thomas maintained a calm demeanor, yet a flicker of worry ignited in his eyes. "He charged me with—" Julie found herself unable to complete the sentence. "I received a phone call from my doctor." He contemplated. She gently rested her hand on her belly, a gesture of care and protection. "He instructed me to go." "In these conditions? During your pregnancy?" Thomas spoke with a steady voice, yet a muscle in his jaw betrayed a flicker of tension. Julie nodded, feeling a flush of shame at her exposed emotions, at the chaos that had overtaken her life. "I'm aware of the impression it gives. It seems you've chosen a partner unworthy of your value," Thomas remarked plainly, devoid of any judgment. "Do you feel a pang of hunger?" "I have the ability to create something." A shift in topic brought a sense of relief. "There's no obligation to do so." "I was going to eat anyway," he said, already making his way to the small kitchen. Simple fare, just soup and sandwiches. Julie observed him as he navigated the kitchen with skill, deftly opening cans and slicing bread. His presence exuded a comforting aura, marked by a serene assurance. "How may I assist you?" She extended her offer. "Just rest," Thomas said. "Instructions from the physician." "Well, the vet said so, but it's pretty much the same." A soft chuckle slipped from her lips, catching them both off guard. Within the expansive confines of the Harrington mansion, Richard strode back and forth in his study, the phone firmly grasped in his hand. The initial fury that had driven him to eject Julie had subsided, leaving an emptiness in his chest. He sifted through their joint phone records, discovering the number Julie had been in conversation with when he had stormed in. His finger lingered just above it, then he pressed the call button. A recorded voice announced, "Dr. Melissa Chen's office. We operate from Monday to Friday." Richard ended the call, a knot forming in his stomach. A physician, precisely as Julie had asserted. He called once more, opting for the voicemail feature when given the choice. "Mrs. Harrington, this is the doctor. Chun reaching out to continue our discussion. I acknowledge your worries regarding the spotting and reduced movement. I wouldn't classify it as an emergency, but I would like to meet with you tomorrow. Kindly reach out to verify your appointment. Make sure to get plenty of rest tonight. Stay calm." The phone almost escaped Richard's hold. The revelation struck him with the force of a tangible impact. Julie was being honest. His wife, his pregnant wife, had been discussing complications with her doctor, and he had cast her out into a blizzard. Curse it all. He flung his empty glass into the fireplace, where it shattered in a dazzling display. His pride held him back from reaching out to her directly. What if she remained silent? What if she revealed to him precisely what he was meant to hear? Instead, he reached out to his chief of security. I must locate my wife without delay. Utilize any available resources as needed. Discreet sleuths, law enforcement connections, all the details. Absolutely, sir. Do you have any thoughts on where she could have gone? Richard shut his eyes. The issue lies with the numbers. Inside the cabin, Thomas and Julie were seated at his modest table, with bowls of steaming tomato soup placed between them. The dialogue unfolded with surprising fluidity. Surely you must be joking. You're a fan of Fitzgerald as well. Julie's eyes sparkled with excitement. Thomas gave a slight nod. My mother taught English. Our home resembled a sanctuary of books. Same here. My father was the one who embraced the written word, and he shared that passion with me. They uncovered additional common interests. Timeless melodies, nature trails, vintage cinema. Upon hearing Thomas say he played guitar, Julie's expression lit up. Could you perform a piece for us? She inquired. I would be eager to listen to it. Thomas paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. He picked up his guitar from next to the bookshelf and comfortably returned to his chair. His fingers glided over the strings, coaxing a soft melody that enveloped them like a warm embrace. As the music enveloped her, Julie felt her eyelids grow heavy. The day's pressures, the cozy embrace of the cabin, and the baby's relentless demand for attention melded together, rendering the effort to remain awake utterly futile. Thomas observed her drifting into slumber and gently eased his playing. As her eyelids fluttered shut, he placed the guitar down and tenderly draped a handcrafted quilt over her form. He whispered, "My grandmother made this." Even though she was unable to hear him, he observed her features in the flickering glow, the shadows beneath her eyes, the creases of concern etched on her brow even in slumber. A sense of guardianship welled up within him. Whatever transpired between her and her husband, it was evident that Julie required solace, support, and a steadfast ally. Thomas placed another log onto the fire, then took his seat across from her, ready to remain vigilant through the night while the storm howled outside. The morning light streamed through the cabin windows, creating soft patches on the wooden floor. Thomas had drifted off in the armchair, stirring occasionally during the night to glance at Julie and toss more logs onto the fire. As he eased his tense muscles, he caught sight of Julie moving on the couch. "Good morning," he remarked, as he made his way to the kitchen. "How are you doing today?" With a slow, deliberate effort, Julie raised herself, a wince escaping her lips. "It's not very good, to be honest." Her face seemed bloated, particularly around her eyes, and her fingers looked enlarged as she swept hair away from her face. Thomas scowled, placing the coffee pot on the counter. "Would you mind if I take a moment to check your blood pressure? Is that a common question for vets to ask?" She made an effort at humor, yet her voice came out tense. "Do you recall the time when I was a medic?" Thomas picked up his medical bag. "I maintain gear for both my furry companions and the rare human visitors." Julie reached out her arm, observing as Thomas secured the cuff around it. His movements were meticulous, expertly executed. The deepening frown on his face as he scanned the numbers sent a wave of unease through her. "Is it really that high?" she inquired. 150/95. Thomas carefully took off the cuff, exceeding the expected level. "Your hands and face appear to be swollen. What is the significance of that?" Julie's hand instinctively rested on her belly, a gesture of care and tenderness. "There is a possibility that it might be preeclampsia. During pregnancy, there exists a condition that leads to elevated blood pressure, potentially impacting various organs, with the kidneys being particularly vulnerable." Thomas maintained a composed demeanor, yet his eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "Have you experienced any headaches? Are there any changes in vision?" "I experienced a few headaches yesterday, but I assumed they were merely a result of stress." Julie's voice quivered just a bit. Thomas nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "I plan to establish a fundamental monitoring system using the resources at my disposal. While it may not be perfect, it certainly holds more value than having nothing at all. As Thomas meticulously organized his veterinary tools on the coffee table, Julie gazed out at the snow gracefully cascading from the sky. "Are we going to be able to leave shortly?" she inquired. Thomas lifted his gaze from his preparations. "The radio reports that the roads remain inaccessible. Cell towers are non-functional throughout the county. It seems we must rely on ourselves for at least another day, possibly two." Julie momentarily shut her eyes. "It feels as though my entire existence is a series of unfortunate events." "Could you clarify what you mean?" Thomas inquired while jotting down her vitals in a compact notebook. Julie let out a soft sigh, reclining against the plush cushions. "At the age of 16, my life took a dramatic turn. My family owned a manufacturing business. It had been passed down through our family for generations." She delicately traced the intricate patterns on the quilt draped over her legs. Then, in an instant, it vanished, sold in the blink of an eye. "My father never truly elaborated on the events, yet we transitioned from a life of abundance to one of mere survival." A tranquil hush enveloped them as Thomas persisted in his scrutiny. Eventually, he inquired, "What about your husband? What was the story behind your first encounter with him?" "At a charity event, he exuded charm and attentiveness." Julie's voice took on a gentler tone. "Everything transformed once we tied the knot. He grew increasingly aloof and domineering." Thomas nodded, a glimmer of comprehension in his gaze. "I understand a thing or two about the evolution of relationships." He carefully positioned the blood pressure cuff. "I was committed before my most recent deployment. Upon my return with a leg injury, she had already moved on. Tied the knot with my high school buddy." "Apologies," Julie expressed. "Turned out well. I have discovered my calling in veterinary medicine. Creatures are indifferent to whether you move with a subtle hitch in your step." His smile radiated authenticity, even as the hurt lingered in his words. As Thomas positioned his stethoscope against Julie's abdomen to listen for the baby's heartbeat, a look of astonishment crossed his face. "Could that be the baby moving?" "Absolutely." Julie beamed, the first genuine smile Thomas had witnessed from her. She grasped his hand and gently guided it to the curve of her belly. "Hold on." In the blink of an eye, Thomas sensed it. A clear pressure against his hand. His face lit up with a broad, genuine smile that mirrored Julie's. For a fleeting instant, the tempest beyond raged, mirroring the perilous state of health. All else vanished into the background. A profound bond existed between us. This collective experience of awe in the cozy glow of the cabin. "That's incredible," Thomas murmured, his hand gently placed on her belly. Julie nodded, her voice caught in the tightness of her throat. In the gaze of this unfamiliar person, she perceived a spark that had long been absent in Richard's eyes. Authentic compassion, curiosity, and admiration. The baby kicked once more, prompting soft laughter from both. A delicate bond forming between them even amidst the perilous situation enveloping them. Julie's head pulsed with intensity as yet another surge of agony enveloped her. She flinched, gripping the armrest of the couch, attempting to mask her unease. However, Thomas observed. He appeared to observe every detail. "Text, your blood pressure is rising once more," he remarked, taking the cuff off her arm. "Currently at 160/100. His voice was steady, yet the tension in his eyes revealed his unease. "Is that unfavorable?" Julie inquired, even though she was already aware of the response. Thomas placed the equipment down gently and knelt before her. "I won't sugarcoat it. Your symptoms seem to be intensifying. The swelling, headaches, and these blood pressure readings indicate that preeclampsia is advancing." Julie's hand instinctively rested on her belly, a gesture of tenderness and care. "What actions can we take?" In a hospital setting, magnesium sulfate would probably be given to avert seizures, and the possibility of delivering the baby would be taken into account. Thomas ran his fingers through his hair. "In this situation, we must make the most of our available resources." He navigated the space with remarkable speed, collecting items from different cabinets. His movements evoked in Julie the image of a soldier, marked by purpose and discipline. I'm putting into practice what we refer to as austere medicine protocols in the field, he clarified, organizing medications and equipment on the coffee table. I possess a selection of fundamental medications in my veterinary supplies that contain the same compounds found in humans, albeit in varying dosages. Julie observed him as he meticulously worked out dosages on a notepad. His brow knitted in deep focus. Your expertise is clearly evident. 3 tours as a combat medic instill the art of improvisation, Thomas responded, carefully measuring liquid into a syringe. I have managed cases of preeclampsia previously, in a remote village in Afghanistan where there was no electricity and very limited resources. This stands as a symbol of opulence in contrast. While Thomas toiled away, a peculiar tranquility enveloped Julie. Even in the face of peril, her trust in him was unwavering. A sharp departure from the feelings she had experienced with Richard lately. Out of the blue, Julie remarked, I never shared my complete maiden name with you. Thomas lifted his gaze from his preparations. Actually, that's not the case. It is Westfield, Julie Westfield Barrett Harrington. She offered a feeble grin, rather expressive. Thomas's hands came to a halt. Westfield, referring to Westfield Industries, the organization you brought up. Julie gave a slight nod. It was established by my grandfather. 2 decades ago, my father was at the helm when Harrington Industries executed a hostile takeover. Her voice turned sharp. They distorted stock prices, circulated falsehoods regarding my father's leadership, and ultimately compelled us to sell for a mere fraction of its worth. Thomas settled back on his heels, taken aback. So, you tied the knot with a Harrington? Is that Harrington? I had no idea, Julie whispered. I was completely unaware that Richard had ties to the company that shattered my family. At the age of 16, it all unfolded. When I encountered Richard at that charity event, I had already ceased using Westfield as my surname. I was simply Julie Barrett. When did you discover it? Half a year into our marriage, I discovered papers in his office. Julie's eyes brimmed with tears. At that point, I had already fallen for him, or so I believed, and then I found out I was pregnant. Thomas couldn't believe what he was hearing. Ellen Reeves, my mother, served as your grandfather's secretary for 15 years. She cherished that job, cherished your family. When the takeover occurred, she found herself juggling 2 minimum wage jobs to keep us afloat. Julie extended her hand towards him. This surely can't be mere chance, can it? Did you discover me amidst that tempest? I no longer believe in coincidences, Thomas murmured, gently squeezing her fingers. 30 miles away, Richard Harrington occupied the passenger seat of a sturdy SUV, navigating the slow, treacherous path of snow-laden roads. 2 private eyes occupied the front seats, maneuvering through the perilous conditions. The driver gestured towards a map, indicating that the last cell tower to register her phone was located in this county, just before all communications ceased entirely. Richard gazed into the dazzling expanse of white, his heart heavy with remorse. The message from the doctor echoed in his thoughts. Mrs. Harrington, I would appreciate it if you could return my call concerning your test results. I have some worries regarding the protein levels in your urine as well as your blood pressure readings. These may suggest the presence of preeclampsia. Accelerate, Richard commanded, his voice raspy. Sir, the roads are hardly navigable. I said faster, Richard snapped. My wife and child might be suffering out here because of my actions. Upon returning to the cabin, Thomas softened the lights to alleviate Julie's headache. He settled next to her on the couch, his voice weaving through the pages of a worn paperback, illuminated by the flickering firelight. It is a truth universally acknowledged, he continued, his voice soft and calming. Julie offered a subtle smile. Pride and Prejudice, a true favorite of mine. Actually, mine as well, Thomas confessed. Please keep this between us and don't share it with my veterinary colleagues. As he read, Julie felt her eyelids becoming increasingly heavy. In a moment of instinct, she allowed her head to lean gently against his shoulder. Thomas hesitated briefly before resuming his reading, his voice a soothing rumble that resonated through his shoulder. In that moment of shared warmth by the fire, a subtle change occurred between them, a delicate bond that seemed both fresh and strangely destined. Suddenly, the relentless knocking at the door jolted them from their thoughts. Thomas glanced through the window, then hurried to unfasten it as a snow-laden figure staggered inside, clutching a hefty medical bag. "Mike, thank goodness," Thomas exclaimed, assisting his colleague in shaking off the heavy blanket of snow that had settled on him. Dr. Mike Peterson shook himself vigorously, sending melting snow flying across the entryway. "You've got a serious debt to settle, Reeves. Almost found myself in a bind 3 times. His gaze settled on Julie. "This has to be your patient." Thomas swiftly introduced everyone while Mike began to unpack the supplies. Blood pressure medications, 4 fluids, and monitoring equipment. "The roads are a disaster," Mike noted, scrutinizing Julie with a keen eye for detail. "Counties have closed all operations. Even emergency services are confined to circumstances that pose a threat to life." He looked at Julie's condition with a significant expression, aware of how dire things could turn if we don't proceed with caution. Once Mike departed, equipped with Thomas's assurances of complimentary veterinary care for his pets for a year, Thomas meticulously arranged the new equipment with a sense of discipline. Julie noted the significant risks her friend had taken to arrive at this point. Thomas gave a slight nod. "That is Mike. We journeyed through veterinary school side by side." He secured a blood pressure cuff around her arm. "This will enable us to track your progress with greater precision." Throughout the day, Thomas remained closely by Julie's side. He crafted unique dishes abundant in nutrients yet light on sodium, including a fragrant vegetable soup infused with herbs from his indoor garden, protein-packed smoothies, and freshly baked bread from the week before. He explained that his mother had taught him to cook, observing as Julie enjoyed the soup. She declared that no child of hers would thrive on fast food. Julie beamed with delight. "I aspire to guide my little one in the art of cooking," as she gently places her hand on her belly, while also nurturing her ability to read from an early age and fostering a love for nature. Her gaze wandered far away. "I have envisioned a time spent outdoors with my child, sharing the wonders of the night sky, guiding them in the art of fishing." Her cheeks flushed with color. "I apologize for going on a bit too much." "There's no need for apologies," Thomas said gently. "Those dreams are truly enchanting." In a roadside hotel, 30 miles distant, Richard Harrington laid out papers across the bed. The tempest had momentarily paused their quest, and he instructed his team to retrieve his father's ancient documents from the estate. After hours of sifting through the documents, he finally stumbled upon it. A folder marked Westfield Acquisition. Within the confines of the folder lay documents that were entirely unfamiliar to him. Reports from private investigators regarding Julie's grandfather, altered financial statements, and personal correspondence from his father to board members, disseminating misleading rumors. The most incriminating evidence was found in his father's personal journal, which outlined his relentless vendetta against Charles Westfield. 2 decades ago, he dismissed my business proposal, labeling it as unethical. Now I will demonstrate the consequences for those who uphold their beliefs in a society that values shrewdness. Richard collapsed onto the bed, the reality striking him with the force of a tangible impact. His family's wealth, the empire he had received, was constructed on the calculated ruin of the Westfields, of Julie's lineage. Oh, how he murmured, the heavy burden of his father's transgressions and his own naivety bearing down on him. What have we done to her? As twilight settled over the cabin, Julie's blood pressure readings started to rise once more. "We need to lower your stress levels," Thomas said, sitting across from her on the couch. "I will share with you some breathing techniques that were effective in managing combat stress." He exhibited a profound breathing rhythm. "Inhale for a count of 4 through your nose, pause for 7, then exhale through your mouth for 8. Julie tried to keep up, but her breath was still shallow. "Here," Thomas remarked, stepping nearer. He rested one hand softly on her diaphragm. "Exhale gently into my palm." Their faces hovered mere inches from one another. Julie noticed shimmering hints of silver in his gray eyes, felt the gentle warmth of his breath. As she took a deep breath, an undeniable change occurred between them, the professional barrier dissolving into an electric connection. Thomas's eyes lingered on her lips for a fleeting instant. Julie found herself leaning in, captivated by an unseen pull she couldn't, nor wished to, defy. A thunderous crack interrupted the stillness. They sprang apart as a tree branch slammed against the window, the glass intact but the noise echoing through the cabin. "Storms are picking up again," Thomas remarked, his voice raspy as he rose suddenly. Julie brushed her lips absent-mindedly, her cheeks tinged with a rosy hue. "Indeed," she consented. Yet the tempest raging outside felt trivial in comparison to the turmoil stirring within her. They distanced themselves, each feigning engagement with mundane tasks, while acutely attuned to the other's existence. The unspoken tension of the almost kiss lingered in the air, a palpable presence that neither could dismiss. A pivotal moment neither had foreseen, yet now appeared unavoidable, despite the unfortunate timing and intricate situation. The wind roared with a fierce intensity as Thomas measured Julie's blood pressure for the third time within the hour. The figures on the improvised screen caused a knot to form in his stomach. 160/95, he murmured, striving to mask the concern in his tone. "It's rising too quickly." Julie's face appeared swollen, her fingers so inflamed that she had taken off her wedding ring just hours before. "The infant," she murmured, flinching as a sudden ache pierced her belly. "There seems to be an issue. Preeclampsia is advancing," Thomas noted, as he collected items from his veterinary kit. "We must lower your pressure or—" He caught himself, yet Julie could see the fear reflected in his eyes. "For what purpose?" she inquired, her voice quivering. "Seizures, organ damage," he paused. "For you and the little one." Outside, headlights sliced through the swirling snow, casting a stark white glow on the cabin windows. Thomas stiffened, instinctively positioning himself in front of Julie. "Remain here," he commanded, seizing the baseball bat that was always positioned by the entrance. The urgent knocking on the door followed moments later, filled with a sense of panic and urgency. Thomas opened it with care, bat in hand, only to come face to face with a snow-draped Richard Harrington. "Where is she?" Richard demanded, shoving past Thomas. His lavish coat was encrusted with ice, his face chafed from the biting cold. The detectives followed the trail of her vehicle. He halted suddenly upon spotting Julie on the couch, encircled by medical equipment. "Richard," Julie exclaimed, her hand instinctively resting on her belly. Thomas interposed himself between them. "She requires medical care, not additional stress." Richard's eyes grew large as he absorbed the scene before him, the blood pressure monitor beeping steadily, the 4-line that Thomas had just set up, and Julie's puffy, distressed face. "What's going on?" "Preeclampsia," Thomas stated succinctly. "Her blood pressure is alarmingly elevated. We must take immediate action to stabilize her condition." A change flickered across Richard's face, the animosity melting into authentic fear. "What options do I have?" Both Thomas and Julie were taken aback by the question. Thomas paused for just a moment before replying with the precision honed by his military experience. "Clean your hands completely. Please assist me in setting up this for." A peculiar partnership emerged, forged solely out of necessity. Richard, adhering closely to Thomas's guidance, assisted in the preparation of the magnesium sulfate solution that Thomas had creatively assembled from his veterinary supplies. "This will help prevent seizures," Thomas explained, his hand steady and careful as he inserted the 4 into Julie's arm. "While it may not be perfect, it stands as our most viable option." Richard grasped Julie's other hand, his gaze fixed intently on her face. Apologies escaped his lips, barely audible against the fierce winds raging beyond. For all things, time slipped away in a state of heightened awareness. Thomas instructed Richard on how to keep an eye on Julie's vitals as he busied himself with preparing additional solutions and reviewing the weather updates on his emergency radio. "A new front is approaching," he declared with a somber tone. "We find ourselves confined for at least another day." As night descended, there was a slight stabilization in Julie's condition. Thomas ventured outside to inspect his generator, leaving the couple in solitude for the very first time. Richard sat beside Julie. His usual air of confidence diminished into a more modest demeanor. He mentioned in a hushed tone that he had discovered his father's files. Regarding your family's business. Concerning the Westfields. Julie's eyes grew large with surprise. Are you aware that my father intentionally ruined your family's business? Absolutely. His voice trembled. He disseminated falsehoods and distorted financial documents, driven by the fact that your grandfather had previously turned down his unscrupulous business offer. Richard's hands shook with a subtle intensity. I truly had no clue, Julie. I promise you that. Julie felt tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't enter into this marriage out of spite, Richard. I was completely unaware of the connection until we were already engaged. I understand that now. He gazed at his hands. I've been controlling, dominating. I regarded you as just another addition rather than a collaborator. He locked eyes with her. I feel a deep sense of regret regarding the actions of my father and myself. The generator sprang to life with a soft hum as Thomas re-entered, shaking the snow from his boots. The cramped cabin drew the three of them closer together as the night wore on and the storm grew fiercer. Julie drifted in and out of sleep on the couch as Thomas monitored her vitals. From the kitchen, where he was brewing coffee, Richard observed their exchange with inscrutable eyes. As Thomas demonstrated to Richard the method for checking edema in Julie's ankles, she feigned sleep, quietly absorbing their soft-spoken exchange. Richard remarked that you have feelings for her. It was not a question. Thomas's reply was thoughtful. She is among the most resilient individuals I have ever encountered. Insightful, empathetic. She discusses literature with the same fervor she conveys her entrepreneurial concepts. She has navigated each challenge in recent days with remarkable poise. Richard replied calmly, You hardly know her. In moments of crisis, the true essence of individuals often emerges more vividly than it does through the mundane passage of everyday life. Thomas responded with brevity. Tears flowed quietly down Julie's cheeks as she grasped the deep contrast that existed between them. Richard sought to claim her beauty and elegance as if they were a prize, while Thomas recognized and appreciated the essence of her true self hidden beneath the exterior. The tempest howled beyond the walls, yet within the confines of the cabin, raw revelations and the first glimmers of comprehension emerged among the trio ensnared by fate, tethered by a past none could have foreseen. Time blurred in Thomas's cabin, distinguished solely by the shifting light filtering through the windows and the rhythm of Julie's medical assessments. The storm had moved on, yet the rural roads lay blocked, entombed in layers of snow, while fallen power lines posed dangers across the county. Emergency services found themselves inundated, prioritizing essential infrastructure and situations that posed immediate threats to life. A fragile peace had settled among the three unexpected housemates. Richard settled onto a cot in Thomas's study, while Thomas opted for the floor in the living room, staying near Julie, who was comfortably positioned on the couch with her medical equipment close at hand. On the third morning, Richard lingered in the doorway that separated the kitchen from the living room, a coffee mug cradled in his hand. Julie's laughter filled the air, a melody he recognized as absent for far too long. Thomas was sharing a tale about delivering a calf amidst yet another snowstorm, his hands moving expressively as he illustrated the farmer's reaction. There I stand, entirely enveloped in, well, you can picture it, and Mrs. Holloway remarks with an utterly serious expression. Thomas pressed on. Allow me to speculate, Julie interjected, her eyes sparkling even in her current state. Did she extend an invitation for dinner? Indeed, Thomas chuckled. She casually mentioned that her meatloaf was ready if I wanted to come in. Their laughter intertwined effortlessly, as if they had been exchanging jokes for years rather than mere days. Richard experienced an unsettling emptiness in his chest as he observed them. As soon as Julie felt the need for water, Thomas instinctively extended his hand toward it, anticipating her request. As she shifted restlessly, he instinctively rearranged her pillows, guided by an unspoken understanding. That evening, as Richard rummaged through Thomas's bedroom in search of additional medical supplies, he inadvertently yanked open the incorrect drawer. Within the confines of the worn velvet case rested several military medals, each one a testament to valor and sacrifice. He lifted one with great care, a Purple Heart, accompanied by a bronze star featuring a Combat V device. The citation highlighted remarkable bravery in the face of enemy fire, resulting in the rescue of 4 injured comrades. Richard gazed at the medals, lost in thought for a long moment. Thomas spoke of his military service only briefly, minimizing the significance of his contributions. The man had truly been a hero, yet he resided in this humble cabin, dedicating himself to the community as a veterinarian, seeking no acknowledgement. As Richard re-entered the living room, supplies in hand, he cast a glance at Thomas, a silent acknowledgement of the respect he now held. He chose not to speak of his revelation, yet he felt a deeper understanding of the quiet strength that had drawn Julie in. On the 5th night, Julie awoke with a start, her hands gripping her abdomen tightly. Contractions, she gasped, terror shining in her gaze. It was quite premature. Thomas sprang into action, assessing her vitals as Richard lingered nearby, filled with concern. "What is the distance between them?" Thomas inquired with a composed demeanor, yet Richard could sense the strain in his shoulders. "About 15 minutes, Julie whispered. "Is my little one arriving now?" Thomas's expression stayed expertly neutral. "We will keep an eye on them. It might be Braxton Hicks. Work on your contractions. But with your preeclampsia," he left the thought hanging in the air. There was no necessity for him to do so. Everyone grasped the peril. As midnight drew near, the contractions grew stronger for a moment before becoming more spaced apart once more. The trio stayed alert, the air heavy with tension. Julie reclined, her gaze locked onto the ceiling, one hand resting on her belly while the other clutched the blanket tightly. "If it comes down to a choice," she said suddenly, her voice unwavering despite her pale complexion, "promise me you'll prioritize the baby above all else." "Julie, please don't," Richard began. "Promise me," she urged, glancing back and forth between the two men. "This young one is worthy of an opportunity to thrive. Promise me you will act without hesitation if that decision must be taken." The cabin was enveloped in silence, broken only by the rhythmic ticking of the ancient clock on the mantel and the gentle hum of the generator outside. Thomas knelt beside her, his expression contorted with feelings he struggled to conceal. "I vow to do everything within my reach to rescue you both," he declared, his voice strained. "All things." The raw intensity of emotion in his expression hit Richard with the force of a physical blow. Though this man had known Julie for only a brief span, the intensity of his concern and care was undeniably profound. Richard averted his gaze, an epiphany enveloping him like a chill wave. What he had experienced with Julie had never been like this. He desired her beauty, her elegance, the way she perfectly fit into the vision of success he had crafted. He sought to own her, rather than to hold her dear. As he glanced over his shoulder, Thomas grasped Julie's hand, his thumbs softly caressing her knuckles while he quietly detailed the signs to be mindful of. The closeness they shared was evident, effortless, and deeply sincere. In that instant, all facades crumbled. Richard at last faced the reality he had been evading since his arrival at the cabin. What developed between Julie and Thomas after just a few days was more genuine than the connection he and Julie had forged over the years. The contractions began in earnest shortly after midnight. Julie's face twisted in agony as she clutched the sides of the couch, her knuckles pale and tense. "Thomas," she breathed out, her voice trembling. "There's a change in the air. This is different now." Thomas examined her once more, his demeanor transforming from a calm professionalism to an intense urgency. "Your water has broken. The baby is on the way now." Richard moved back and forth with a sense of unease. "However, it feels premature. And the roads? There's no other option," Thomas stated with conviction. "This is occurring in this place." The living room was converted into an improvised delivery room. Thomas retrieved medical supplies from his veterinary bags, articulating clear instructions to Richard. Amidst the palpable tension, both men advanced with unwavering determination, prioritizing the safety of Julie and her baby. Richard, I need you to stand behind her for support, Thomas instructed. Allow her to lean on you during contractions. Richard settled onto the couch, holding Julie close, her back resting against him as he enveloped her in a warm embrace. He grasped her hands, allowing her to tighten her grip as the pain grew stronger. You're doing wonderfully, Julie, Thomas reassured, his voice calm even though Richard could sense the anxiety in his gaze. Recall the breathing techniques we went over. Julie let out a cry as another contraction surged within her, more intense than the previous one. The baby's heart rate is dropping, Thomas said, his expression serious as he examined with his stethoscope. Julie, it's time for us to deliver. When the next wave hits, I want you to give it your all. Richard sensed Julie quaking beside him, aware of her summoning her resolve. You can do this, he whispered softly in her ear. You are the most resilient individual I have ever encountered. She tilted her head just a bit, a look of astonishment crossing her face, marked by the traces of her suffering, in response to his words. The subsequent contraction surged forth like a mighty tidal wave. Julie unleashed a scream that was both primal and raw, a force of pure emotion. Richard steadied her, whispering words of encouragement as Thomas labored with unwavering concentration. I can see the head, Thomas declared. Just one final effort, Julie. With one last weary push, Julie exerted herself. Richard sensed her weight give way as an unexpected sound permeated the cabin. The delicate, indignant wail of a newborn. It's a girl, Thomas said, his voice heavy with emotion as he swiftly cleared the baby's airways and enveloped her in fresh towels. Though she may be petite, her lungs resonate with clarity. He gently laid the small, rosy-cheeked baby on Julie's chest. Even in her weariness, Julie's arms rose automatically to embrace her daughter. Hello, dear child, she murmured, tears cascading down her cheeks. At last you have arrived. Richard stood in silence, captivated by the delicate, flawless features of his daughter's face. As Thomas gently cradled the baby in his arms moments later, a profound transformation occurred within him. The gentle presence of this small being, a blend of him and Julie, unlocked a part of him that had remained hidden for so long. She possesses an undeniable beauty, he managed to say, his voice trembling. As he raised his gaze, he noticed the exchange between Julie and Thomas. Tired yet filled with joy, a closeness that he and Julie had never experienced. In Thomas's gaze, there was no sense of victory or ownership, only a profound sense of awe and gentleness. In the ensuing hours, Thomas navigated between mother and child, monitoring vitals and ensuring both remained stable. He exhibited a soft mastery that seemed to stem from a wellspring beyond mere medical education. Richard observed as Thomas demonstrated to Julie the proper way to check the baby's temperature, gently guiding her hands to support the delicate head, his movements exuding a sense of ease and expertise. As Julie succumbed to slumber, the baby nestled snugly beside her. Richard ventured outside to embrace the refreshing morning air. The tempest had at last subsided, unveiling a radiant azure expanse above and sunlight dancing upon the untouched snow. He retrieved his phone, astonished to discover a signal, and swiftly dialed 3 numbers in rapid order. His lawyer, his financial advisor, and the chairman of the board at Harrington Industries. As twilight descended, Thomas busied himself in the kitchen, crafting a meal, while Richard lingered by Julie's bedside. Her complexion had brightened, and the baby rested soundly in a makeshift bassinet Thomas had crafted from a drawer. I've spent a great deal of time reflecting, Richard said softly, on our relationship, on my actions. Julie observed him with caution. I'm releasing you, he went on, not merely from our union, but from it all. I have directed my legal team to return the controlling interest in Westfield Manufacturing to your family, along with additional compensation for the assets my father appropriated. Julie's eyes grew large with surprise. Richard, kindly allow me to complete my thoughts. I've noticed the way you gaze at him, Julie, and the way he gazes back at you, the connection you share, and the potential for what you could create together. It exists in a manner that you and I never did. He offered a wistful smile. Your happiness means more to me than my own pride. This is unfamiliar territory for me. From the doorway, Thomas emerged with a tray of food, halting as he perceived the weight of their discussion. After a brief pause, Julie gently remarked that Thomas was on the verge of demonstrating the proper way to swaddle her. "Are you interested in learning as well?" Richard stood, his head shaking in disbelief. "It seems that's a matter best suited for the two of you." He glanced from Julie in bed to Thomas in the doorway. The baby nestled between them, and perceived, with a sharp pang, the family that had always eluded him. 3 days post-birth, the roads finally cleared, as snowplows made their way to the secluded spot where Thomas's cabin was nestled. Richard organized an ambulance to take Julie and the baby to the regional hospital, determined to ensure they received the finest care. Even though Julie insisted, she was feeling perfectly fine. "We're not leaving anything to chance," he stated decisively, observing Thomas assist Julie into a cozy coat. "Not after all that you've experienced." The parting from Thomas proved to be more challenging for Julie than she had expected. As she stood in the doorway of the cabin that had transformed into a refuge, she grappled with her thoughts, searching for the right words to express herself. "I truly can't find the words to express my gratitude," she finally admitted. Thomas beamed, the edges of his eyes wrinkling with joy. "There's no need for that. Simply focus on yourself and this precious little one." He softly caressed the baby's cheek, nestled securely against Julie's chest in a carrier. "I will," Julie promised, her voice trembling slightly. At the hospital, medical professionals conducted thorough examinations on both the mother and the child. Richard strode through the waiting room, his phone glued to his ear, as he orchestrated the details of Julie's re-entry into the world. As the doctor stepped out, his smile washed over the anxious parents like a wave of relief. "Mrs. Harrington, I must say, your daughter is thriving despite her early arrival," the doctor stated, "and you have also made a commendable recovery from what was potentially a risky delivery. The person who helped you clearly had a solid understanding of the task at hand." "He did," Julie murmured, recalling Thomas's unwavering hands and soothing demeanor. Later that afternoon, Richard stepped into Julie's hospital room, a leather portfolio in hand. He appeared transformed, subdued in a manner she had never witnessed previously. The jagged facets of his character dulled. "I have something for you," he said, settling into the chair next to her bed. He unzipped the portfolio and extracted a neatly organized stack of legal documents. "The ownership of Westfield Manufacturing is being transferred back to you. It has been reorganized as a subsidiary of Harrington Industries, yet you will maintain complete control." Julie gazed at the papers, her hands quivering as she took them in. "Richard, I'm perplexed. It ought to have remained with your family," he stated plainly. "The actions of my father were utterly unacceptable. This has been a long time coming." Julie felt a swell of emotion as she gazed at the company letterhead, her grandfather's design enduring through the passage of time. "Thank you," she murmured. Richard paused for a moment, then took her hand gently. "This could definitely come together, Julie. Begin anew. I am no longer the person I was just a week prior." Julie softly pulled her hand away. She spoke softly. "I am not the woman I once was. A great deal has transpired, Richard. We are aware that the foundation of our marriage was unstable even prior to this situation." A fleeting expression of resignation crossed his face, soon giving way to acceptance. "I had a feeling you'd respond that way." He adjusted his posture. "An apartment has been arranged for you in the city. The finest pediatricians, ready to provide any assistance you require, without any obligations. That's incredibly kind." "It's the bare minimum I can offer," Richard responded. "For the two of you." A gentle rap broke the silence. Thomas lingered in the doorway, an air of discomfort surrounding him as he surveyed the clinical hospital setting, a small wooden box cradled in his hands. "I trust I'm not imposing," he remarked. Richard rose to his feet. "Not in the slightest. I need to make a few calls." He acknowledged Thomas with a nod as he walked by, a silent sign of respect between two individuals who had endured an extraordinary journey together. In the quiet of the room, Thomas moved closer to Julie's bed, his gaze instinctively landing on the infant peacefully resting in the bassinet. Could I? He inquired. Julie nodded, observing him as he effortlessly lifted her daughter, cradling the delicate little one against his chest with a gentle touch. The infant calmed right away, as though sensing his presence. She recalls you, Julie murmured gently. Thomas beamed with delight. I brought a little something for her. For the two of you, truly. With great care, he returned the baby to the bassinet and presented Julie with the wooden box he had brought along. It was beautifully crafted, adorned with intricate wildflowers along the borders. As Julie lifted the lid, a soft tune started to fill the air. Did you create this? She inquired, filled with wonder. Engaging in carving allows my mind to wander, particularly amidst the chaos of snowstorms. His smile radiated warmth, yet carried a hint of melancholy, a token of our shared moments. Thomas, Julie started, yet the words eluded her grasp. I think it's time for me to leave, he said after a moment. There are patients awaiting my attention. Creatures continue to fall ill, regardless of a mere dusting of snow. As he began to walk away, Julie instinctively reached for his hand. Their fingers entwined, lingering in a moment that stretched beyond the bounds of mere friendship, both hesitant to release their grasp. This isn't goodbye, Julie declared, her voice steady and resolute. I can't pinpoint the moment or the method, but this is far from finished. Thomas held her hand softly for a moment before letting it go. I'll be around, he stated plainly, at your convenience. 3 months later, the warm spring sunlight poured through the windows of Julie's downtown office. The logo of Westfield Manufacturing, brought back to its original design, shone brightly on the wall behind her desk. She examined the quarterly reports with a sense of fulfillment, observing how her focus on ethical manufacturing practices had already started to restore the company's reputation. A gentle coo captured her focus, pulling her gaze toward the portable crib nestled in the corner. Emma, her daughter, reached out playfully at the dangling toys overhead, her joyful gurgles filling the air. Julie beamed, observing the baby who had flourished despite her tumultuous arrival into the world. Her phone vibrated, signaling a message from Richard. Is it still all right to take Emma this weekend? I purchased the organic formula you suggested. Julie swiftly responded with a yes. She was taken aback by Richard's transformation more than anyone else. His weekly visits began with an air of discomfort. A man who initially seemed uneasy around infants, yet had developed a sincere sense of paternal warmth. He never pushed Julie regarding their relationship, appearing to acknowledge that chapter had come to an end. Her assistant knocked and entered, holding the local newspaper from the rural county where she had experienced those pivotal days during the snowstorm. You requested that I keep an eye on the news from Oak Ridge County, the assistant remarked, setting the paper down on Julie's desk. Julie glanced at the headline, and a wave of despair washed over her. A local veterinary clinic is at risk of shutting down following the acquisition of the land by a development company. The piece elaborated on the acquisition of Thomas Reeves' clinic property by a development firm with intentions to construct upscale vacation residences. Thomas faced an overwhelming challenge. He had just 3 months to relocate, a timeline that felt utterly unfeasible considering the specialized equipment and facilities required. Julie perused Thomas's quote, "We will persist in offering care for as long as we can. Affordable veterinary services are essential for this community, particularly for working families and farms." She caressed the words, recalling his voice. While they had sent a few texts back and forth, inquiring about her well-being and sharing news about Emma, Julie had intentionally kept her distance, feeling the need to carve out her own identity before confronting the intense bond they had. In light of the clinic's challenges, Julie saw a chance to assist the man who had been a lifesaver for both her and Emma. 2 days later, Julie navigated her SUV along the now familiar country roads, with Emma safely secured in her car seat. The landscape transformed completely in the absence of snow, revealing rolling green hills adorned with wildflowers, a stark contrast to the white wasteland etched in her memory. She navigated the route to Thomas's clinic, steering into a gravel parking area next to an unassuming structure adorned with a sign that proclaimed Reeves Veterinary Services. A handwritten addition was announced, featuring the Friday free clinic for working families. From her vantage point, Julie observed the bustling waiting room, filled with a diverse array of pets, ranging from farm dogs to hamsters nestled in their carriers. She lifted Emma from her car seat and stepped inside. The receptionist raised her gaze. "Is there an appointment scheduled?" "No, I'm here to consult with the physician." "Reeves," Julie responded. "Is he free?" "He's wrapping up with a patient." "Patience is an option if—" The inner door swung open, revealing Thomas, clipboard clutched firmly in his hand. He donned scrubs and appeared weary, yet a smile graced his face as he conversed with a young boy holding a rescued kitten. As he looked up and caught sight of Julie, he halted abruptly in his speech, for a space of anticipation. Then Emma let out a joyful squeal and stretched her chubby arms toward him, as if recalling the tender hands that had brought her into the world. Thomas passed the clipboard to his assistant and made his way across the room with purposeful strides. He paused right before reaching Julie, his gaze absorbing both her and the infant. "You're here," he said simply, a note of awe in his voice. "We're here," Julie confirmed, her heart pounding at the closeness of him. "I came across information regarding the clinic." Thomas's expression grew gentler as he gazed at Emma, who was still reaching out to him. "Could I?" Julie nodded, and he gently took Emma, who instantly grasped his finger and beamed at him with a delightful gummy smile. "She recalls you," Julie murmured gently. "I never forgot either of you," Thomas said, his gaze locking onto Julie's with a fervor that made the 3 months apart vanish in a heartbeat. Thomas guided Julie through his clinic, revealing the cramped treatment rooms and aging equipment he had upheld with unwavering resolve. Team members demonstrated remarkable efficiency in the face of constraints, their commitment shining through in each engagement. "You've created something truly remarkable here," Julie remarked, cradling Emma on her hip as they explored the facility. Thomas swept his fingers through his hair, a gesture that wouldn't last much longer. "The development company has provided me with a 90-day notice to leave the premises." Julie inhaled deeply. "What if you could stay right where you are? What if, instead, you could grow?" "Unfortunately, that's not an option. The property has already been sold." Indeed, Julie mentioned that the Westfield Family Foundation secured it just this morning. Thomas came to a halt. "Excuse me? I'm suggesting a collaboration," Julie articulated, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "The foundation is set to establish a well-equipped animal hospital, complemented by community outreach initiatives. We will create a solution that benefits the entire county, providing accessible care for working families, emergency services for agricultural operations, and even a center dedicated to wildlife rehabilitation. With your guidance," she whispered gently. Thomas gazed at her, his expression one of utter disbelief. "Julie, that would amount to millions. The organization possesses the necessary resources. What it requires is a leader who possesses both vision and compassion." She repositioned Emma to her opposite hip. "Someone akin to you. You really think I can handle that level of responsibility? I've entrusted you with so much more," she said, looking down at their daughter. 3 months later, a multitude of community members came together for the groundbreaking ceremony of the Westfield Reeves Animal Hospital. Julie stood next to Thomas as he spoke to the audience, detailing their vision for inclusive care available to everyone, regardless of income. As the applause filled the air, Julie caught sight of a recognizable silhouette lingering at the rear of the audience. Richard stood, observing, with Emma nestled in his embrace. He had called that morning, expressing his desire to bring their daughter to the ceremony, yet Julie had not anticipated that he would truly show up. Once the speeches wrapped up, Richard made his way over, with Emma chattering joyfully in his embrace. "Congratulations," he remarked, his expression heartfelt. "This is remarkable. Thank you for bringing her," Julie remarked, gently taking Emma and planting a kiss on her chubby cheek. Richard glanced at Julie and Thomas, observing the subtle intimacy in their stance, shoulders almost brushing, their bodies inclined toward one another even while engaging with others. He noted how well you two complement each other. Thomas reached out his hand. "Thanks to your belief in Julie's vision, this became a reality." Richard grasped it with determination. I've discovered insights about releasing what doesn't belong to me. His gaze locked onto Julie's. Emma deserves parents who find joy, regardless of whether they are together or apart. Julie felt a surge of emotion as tears threatened to spill at this unforeseen gift. I'm serious, Richard went on. I stand behind both of you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Thomas guided Julie down a well-known country road, now framed by vibrant wildflowers in place of winter's snowdrifts. Where are we headed? Julie inquired. You'll see, Thomas said with an enigmatic grin. He stopped at a location that appeared ordinary at first, but then Julie identified the ditch where her car had skidded on that fateful night. Now, rather than ice and darkness, the landscape flourished with vibrant purple and yellow wildflowers dancing in the soft spring breeze. Thomas grasped her hand and guided her to the precise location where he had discovered her. This is the moment that transformed everything for me, he murmured gently. The place where I discovered you. He dipped his hand into his pocket and knelt among the wildflowers. The ring he held captured the final glimmers of sunlight, a diamond nestled among small sapphires reminiscent of a winter night sky. The most challenging night of your existence led you to me, Thomas remarked, his tone unwavering even as emotions flickered in his gaze. I wish to dedicate the remainder of our lives to ensuring you never experience a night like that again. Julie Barrett, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Indeed, she murmured, tears cascading down her cheeks. Absolutely, without a doubt. As Thomas slid the ring onto her finger, Julie reflected on how the most challenging moment of her life had ultimately guided her to her genuine partner, not through riches or ease, but through shared values, mutual respect, and a love forged in adversity yet destined to endure. Their kiss, observed solely by the flickering fireflies and the emerging evening stars, marked the transition from betrayal to a sense of belonging. If this tale captivated you, I've discovered another remarkable one tailored just for you. The conversations in our community are filled with admiration for its heartwarming and moving nature. Press play on the video before you to immerse yourself in this captivating tale while it lasts.